Both Native Americans and Assyrians know the importance of our respective native soils and what a fight it has been to retain the little we have access to today. In this project, we're focusing on the element of clay, which is literal pieces of the land that, when water is added, becomes a material that can create art, cookware, housing structures, and storage vessels. Our native soil then becomes a tool for sustaining our livelihood and presence on our land. The name of this project, Native Soil, recognizes these similarities between our people groups and is a project that centers cultural exchange. We hope that there can be reciprocity between Assyrians and Native Americans that takes place on both of the lands that we call home.
Welcome to the Modern Assyrian program on AGN Sat. My name is Carmen Morad. I have a very special guest today to tell us about a very special project called the Native Soil. Welcome to the program, Esther.
Hi, Carmen. So nice to be here.
It's nice to have you here, Miss Esther Elia, on a very special project that's very close, I think, to all of our hearts, that has to do with our ethnicity, that we are indigenous people of our homeland. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, Esther, and about how you came about to be involved in this very special project.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Turlock, California, and decided to go to art school in San Francisco and did that for 4 years, and it was a little too expensive. So when I was choosing a master's program, I was looking for a program that was a little more affordable and found one in New Mexico. And it ended up being really, really important to go there. And it was a very transformative time in my life. And part of that is because there's such a large Native American population. There are a lot of tribes and reservations, and there were many Native American professors in my program. And so I started learning about Native art history and the different connections that they've forged with museums as Indigenous people to this land. And it just kind of provided a framework for me to then say, okay, they have like created a path and a roadway that Assyrians can follow. And so that was really educational and wonderful. And also while I was there, I took a class called Pueblo Pottery, where we were taught by an Indigenous man how to harvest clay. And this was knowledge that has been passed down through his family for generations. And he basically showed us how to recognize clay in the land. We became very close. I took his class every semester. I TA'd and was the clay workshop manager. And around that time, went to Atra for the first time. I went to Iraq with Gishru.
With getting another group of Indigenous people to come visit the land, that's different. It's very symbolic in terms of, you have this Indigenous ancient people that suffered through a lot of discrimination, persecution, marginalization, that have been able to still thrive, although with a lot of difficulty, but able to thrive. Meeting another group of people that had a different experience, but also along the same lines of discrimination, persecution, marginalization. And they are in that grind. They're in that crossroads of being able to survive or not in their homeland. And having that bridge between them, that's a lot of experiences, although shared, different, it's really important to have that connection to show that, yes, although we're Indigenous, we are marginalized, that we are still surviving and we're still paying homage to our past.
Support this groundbreaking Indigenous exchange between Native Americans and Assyrians. Click the link in my bio to donate now.
And as we were visiting Assyrian villages, in northern Iraq, because I had taken this class, I saw that there was natural clay kind of everywhere in the landscape. And so I verified with locals there that it was indeed natural clay. And they were like, yes, clay is everywhere. And I went back to New Mexico, talked to my professor. His name is Clarence Cruz, and kind of offhandedly said, would you ever want to go to Iraq? Would you ever want to go to Assyrian villages and harvest clay there? And he was really excited and said yes. And we kind of formulated together what a cultural exchange trip might look like.
Like I've always told my students, we're all connected to clay, no matter from what culture you come from. But how has your culture used clay? For what purposes? Whether it's medicinal purposes, body paint, utilitarian wear, tiles, urns, building a house, how has your culture used clay, You come take my class, bring something from your culture into the class. I'll teach you how to hand build process and whatnot, paint, fire, but let's bring something in and make it happen. Just like Native people, who come to seek us to teach them how to do the product, meaning the pots, from where they come from, is that, what a way to give back to your community and reviving something that's not being seen.
Support this groundbreaking Indigenous exchange between Native Americans and Assyrians. Click the link in my bio to donate now.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. A trip with Gishru. I think you can say that that was your awakening when it comes to this project. We all have our aha moments. There is also information that you sent that we'll be watching, of course, during this broadcast that has to do with Dr. Joseph Denavi. He is one person that I've admired his work through the years, and I've admired his work, commitment, and dedication on preservation and advancement of our culture, heritage, whether it's in diaspora or the homeland. And what makes this project so meaningful, Esther, and I think the more we elaborate on the significance of one of the components of this project is, yes, we talk about being an ethnic minority all the time, but this has to do with this exchange program that has to do with indigenous people of the homeland. And I think that takes the conversation to another level that I don't believe it ever has been. This is very innovative. Tell us how Dr. Denavi became involved in this project, and what are the goals when it comes for this project with your university?
Yeah, Dr. Denavi was a huge influence, in part because of his co-founding of Gishru. Mm-hmm. And so they choose specific people from a lot of applicants to go, in part because they're trying to expose Assyrians from diaspora in the homeland who they think will do things for the Assyrian nation in the future. So create projects. And so during Gishru, we were really encouraged to kind of explore where we could make connections and have collaborations and meet as many people as possible and go to as many places as possible so that we could connect, make that bridge and connect with our people in the homeland and continue in the future to connect with them. And so that was already part of that experience, was we were all kind of brainstorming how we could continue to strengthen our connections there. And with my university, because there's such a large Indigenous presence, my work, my my artwork that was talking about the Assyrian experience and the Assyrian identity was immediately seen by my Native professors as Indigenous work. And they were immediately supportive and understanding and related to my work with their own experiences. And I think encouraged me to say, yes, we're not just an ethnic minority. That has been, as countries change and the names change and the borders change, that has been where we have stayed since the beginning. That is our Indigenous homeland. And that's a huge deal. And it's even more of a big deal that we have stayed there despite not having it named after us. We don't have governmental control. And so that was kind of, I was learning a lot from the Native American population in New Mexico about what that means and the type of language to use around it. And it also made our collaboration with this project so seamless and so easy. And so kind of our goals for this.
This is groundbreaking. This has never been done before. Think about the millennia of history between these two communities. And I'm speaking as a third person here, like as a Syrian community and then as the Native American community. I mean, that's millennia of history there. And now we're bringing them together for the first time, despite all the marginalization, discrimination, genocide, and government action. You know, I mean, that in itself is a symbol of perseverance. You know, and to work in a project within the homeland in Assyria. I mean, that's amazing.
Support this groundbreaking Indigenous exchange between Native Americans and Assyrians. Click the link in my bio to donate now.
We're going to Nala first because I saw a lot of the village of Nala. I saw a lot of clay there. And we're going to be holding harvesting workshops. And so if there are people there who know how to harvest, that's going to be the first point of cultural exchange. Is Clarence Cruz will show how the Pueblo people harvest, and then someone within Nala can show how Assyrian people harvest. And wow. So that's going to be fun. Basically, the way to harvest clay is you dig it out of the ground and you submerge it in water, and it becomes clay very quickly, and then you let the water kind of evaporate out. And so that's kind of the first goal. Then we're taking the clay to Bebede, where we're going to hold workshops. So there's we're going to be in a building and we're holding community workshops where, again, it's going to be an exchange of how do you make a clay work out of this clay that has been harvested from our land, and what does it mean to make something from our homeland. And so part of my I'll say one of the goals of this project is to show this whole process from beginning to end of harvesting this natural gift from our land and then making something out of it that you can then put on your table as a reminder that we are connected to our land and this land is ours and we are indigenous to this place, and it be this kind of reminder. And so we're hoping to have community workshops in Bebede where people come, where other Assyrian clay artists come. We've invited a couple, and we're crossing our fingers, where we go and meet with, I know there's definitely some Assyrians who are still harvesting clay, meet with them, see what our indigenous methods of making are. And I'm excited to learn about my own people and how we have done this in the past. And Clarence Cruz is really excited to also learn how another Indigenous nation across the globe does this thing that has been passed down to him for generations.
With getting another group of indigenous people to come visit the land, that's different. It's very symbolic in terms of, you have this indigenous ancient people that suffered through a lot of discrimination, persecution, marginalization, that have been able to still thrive, although with a lot of difficulty, but able to thrive. Meeting another group of people that had a different experience, but also along the same lines of discrimination, persecution, marginalization. And they are in that grind. They're in that crossroads of being able to survive or not in their homeland. And having that bridge between them, that's a lot of experiences, although shared, different. It's really important to have that connection to show that, yes, although we're indigenous, we're marginalized, that we are still surviving and we're still paying homage to our past.
Support this groundbreaking Indigenous exchange between Native Americans and Assyrians. Click the link in my bio to donate now.
It's a beautiful way of tapping into an ancient civilization such as ours and see the similarities with the Native Americans, or as we call them, the Native Indians of this country or North America, and their contribution when it came to, for example, in this case, harvesting clay. But the significance of it, and I've heard Clarence speak when it came to his way of raising awareness that we are still here, no matter how much history has tried to wipe us off the map. There is a lot of similarities between us, the Assyrians of our ancestral homelands, and what has happened to us with the disbursement throughout diaspora. But how beautiful is it to find similarities? And I also, what really resonated with me, Esther, with Clarence, was the fact he used the word resistance. I use the word resilience, but I think resistance in this conversation also fits so beautifully. But let's talk about the actual logistics of this project. Give us some dates. And of course, every project takes funding. Who is paying for this project? Who can be a participant? What is the criteria to meet? And how can we and our viewers help to contribute to make this beautiful project come into fruition?
So the first part is that this is kind of the research trip. That's going to be our first one. We're hoping of many. Clarence Cruz will be going. Another young man who's Navajo will be going, named Jared So. And he and I are hoping to, in the future, create more trips like this, some kind of nonprofit organization. We have high hopes for this thing to grow. And so we're hoping that with this trip, we'll kind of feel it out, understand how this could go in the future, so that other Assyrians from diaspora can come. And we're hoping that it can do the opposite as well, that Assyrians from Iraq could come to the US, to Native American reservations, and commune with them on their land. And so we're hoping that this is one of many. Clarence and I had the conversation about this trip in November, just this last November. And so we had already missed all deadlines for grants that could help fund this trip. So everything has been crowdfunded. And I think with something like this, it came together so quickly and naturally that it felt like the right time. and we should just like keep the wheel moving. And so that has made funding a little bit more difficult because we're not tapping into large government funded resources. And so thankfully we've raised 15,000, and that's through Assyrians donating, non-Assyrians donating, and then 2 Assyrian organizations donating, the Assyrian Cultural Foundation in Chicago and the Assyrian Foundation of America. And so we're so grateful to them for investing in this initiative. And we have about 5,000 more to go for this to be the trip that it needs to be. So it's funding 3 potters, me, Mr. Cruz, Jared So, as well as a Assyrian journalist, Joe Snell. He works at the Washington Post and is coming to film everything so that we can make a documentary, so that we can continue to raise awareness and support for this project. And a translator from Bebede who will be both a language translator and cultural translator for us, since we're bringing in cultural outsiders. So that's kind of the group. And yeah, I think those are our goals.
I think those are wonderful goals. You have short-term goals and long-term goals for future projects. However, what we would like to do today through our programming is to let our viewers and the Assyrian viewers know how important it is to contribute and fund young Assyrians such as yourself to do such innovative projects, and to not only raise awareness, but to be a trailblazer is what I would call it, because not only does it have an academic component, not only does it have a preservation and advancement component, which is very close to my heart, but you are also traveling. You are also taking people, and hopefully this will grow as a second step to Gishru with a different meaning to it. Congratulations to you, Esther, and to your team. And we would love to have you back after you have finished your project and you have your documentary. But today, what do you have to ask our viewers as far as contributions, as far as any support? Because obviously this is traveling to the Middle East. What kind of restrictions have you had and obstacles have you had to face?
Very few, surprisingly. It's fairly easy to get to northern Iraq specifically. So that has all been okay. The only real issue are flight prices right now are high. And so that has been difficult as far as fundraising goes. And so really what we need is funds. Anything helps. You can contribute anything through our GoFundMe campaign, and then we ask that once you contribute that you would share it as widely as possible, so that people at the very least have the knowledge that this is going on.
That's amazing. I'm sure we'll have the GoFundMe information and contact information for our viewers who would like to contact you for more information and see how they can contribute and how they can be a part of such a beautiful project. And like I said, I'm looking forward to this project, to your findings, to the documentary. And it is a privilege, I think, for any of us to contribute to a project that will raise such awareness, especially when you have Assyrian journalists that will be covering this. And this is one way that we raise awareness on what Assyrians are doing in diaspora and how our connection to our ancestral homeland is strong.
Yeah.
In closing, Esther, please let us know about the dates. When is the deadline to contribute?
Yes.
And how we can finalize this conversation about how we can contribute to make your project as successful as possible.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. So we'll be going this June 1 through 14. And we really are hoping to raise the 20,000 by April, and so that we can purchase flights and know that we're good to go. But if that doesn't happen, we have enough to purchase flights, and we can continue to fundraise through April and May for our on-the-ground expenses.
All right. You know, I do believe, and I'm very optimistic, that Assyrians in diaspora who do really well will write those checks that are necessary to make this project possible. And I would like to congratulate you on your success and on your project. And kudos to those who are responsible for making these projects available and successful.
Thank you so much. I agree. Our community is thriving, and we can raise this money. And I'm so grateful for your support in letting me speak about the project today.
Absolutely, Esther. And of course, this program will be on AGNSAT's Facebook page, and it will be on YouTube, so you can share it, and all the necessary information with the very sensitive deadline for donating will be available. And anything we can do on this network to make sure your work is successful, we are always here to make sure that these projects go on and our viewers and our nation is aware of them.
Wonderful.
Thank you for joining me today, Esther Elia. My name is Carmen Morad. I will see you on the next Modern Assyrian on AGNSAT.
Both Native Americans and Assyrians know the importance of our respective native soils and what a fight it has been to retain the little we have access to today. In this project, we're focusing on the element of clay, which is literal pieces of the land that, when water is added, becomes a material that can create art, cookware, housing structures, and storage vessels. Our native soil then becomes a tool for sustaining our livelihood and presence on our land. The name of this project, Native Soil, recognizes these similarities between our people groups and is a project that centers cultural exchange. We hope that there can be reciprocity between Assyrians and Native Americans that takes place on both of the lands that we call home.